My name's Chris, and this week I've got 7 tools for anyone wanting to get better at ear training. I've been talking about ear training a lot on this channel, about how different chords make me feel, but today I want to be covering resources on how to actually practice this stuff on a chord level and a melody level. In general, just trying to hear music more fluently, to really feel what key something's in, to feel the harmonic story, the melodic story, the relativity of it all, the emotional content. That's what I'm going to be going over today. Also, some more applied things you can do with your voice and other methods on practicing this. The number 1, curiosity. This is something you have to have in place for the other thing. Curiosity in a general kind of childlike way, where you start to get really curious about sounds in your life. This, of course, applies to anything besides music, but especially with music, you have to start getting really curious at a perceptual level. It's okay to be curious at an intellectual level too. That's part of music study. But I think the most important part is the perceptual curiosity of when I hear a sound go off in my life, like a car door opens and it's got 2 notes, or a chord plays on your computer when you start it up. What is that? Is it a major chord? Is it a minor chord? Can you hum the notes? Can you imagine those notes in the scale? These are the things we have to practice, right? And we have to have this curiosity that really is just enamored with sound and enamored with different types of sound, and our ability to map that sound out in our head. Because the more you can map it out in your head and feel what I'm talking about, that will, of course, enable everything else. And it gives you a perception that you need going into music. It gives you all that context. And it also gives you tools that you can build up over time, like these, that can get your ear deeper and deeper. Like my curiosity continues to push me on things that I can't quite hear. Like I'm a jazz player, I try to be, and it's tough, and that's constantly demanding your ear hear deeper, like to hear changes quicker, more complex harmony, whatever the thing is, and it's a very subconscious thing. This all needs to be fueled by curiosity. Find those musicians that you like listening to that kind of enable that for you, like the way they do music. You can have many levels of curiosity here, but a curiosity of learning is the important thing. To get really curious about sound and how we can know it at a deeper level, where you can find like 1-5 and you can just find that, or 1-7, right? This like perceptual thing. If you hear someone playing, music and they got a bass line that goes like, in the car next to you, something like that, right? It's just no mystery. If you're curious about something enough, you want the answer. Right? You want to kind of get to the bottom of it. You want to practice it so you can get deeper and deeper. Anytime you interact with music, try to find something to be curious about. Number 2, your voice. I'm starting to see how important it is the longer I teach. Even if you don't sing, try to get your voice online a little bit, and you're just practicing like matching a specific pitch. By doing that, you're kind of also mentally making a little notch in your brain that's helping us with the next point, scales. The voice is such a quick and personal and visceral way to experience music and to experience a melody, or can be. And your instrument can be that too, but I would not neglect the voice here. So just practicing like getting unison pitches and practicing, of course, singing with the melody, that's the easy part. Try to sing with the bass line, right? Try to hear the bass line of something. Try to pitch map on your guitar. So just see what you can and cannot sing. Right? If you can sing a scale, da, 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 da. Can I sing every other note? Like do, da, 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 da. And to test that. Da, 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 da. And to see if you can lose it. I do this a lot when I'm soloing. If I can sing it, I feel like I am justified to play it. But if I can't really sing it and I can't articulate it out of my mouth, then it's like, should I play it? That's an interesting thing to examine. If you're a jazz player, improviser, it keeps you a little honest and you're not just going on for 5 minutes because you can. Because it's more like, your voice can't go that long. So you need to take some breaks, put some space in there to breathe, right? Okay, the next ties right into major scale. I put the major scale in here. It's kind of arbitrary. It could be a minor scale or whatever. But the major scale is pretty primary in our culture's musical foundation. So everything's kind of in this context, whether we like it or not, because we've heard a million jingles. We've heard all these songs written out of a major key. We want to have a deep relationship with the sounds. And again, that goes back to the voice. Like, what easier way can we experience a scale than the voice? Also, your instrument, right? You could go learn some scales on the guitar, just 1 octave, or piano. Pretty simple, right? And no one cares we can play a scale. But because this is so primary, it is such a good way to feed ourselves this information contextually. It's like learning this one lesson, so the next 10 years of music are smoother and actually go downhill in like a good way. It doesn't feel like an uphill journey. You can sing with this and practice really getting these notches in your brain, right? So that way you can recognize them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then try to just really see how deep our connection to this can get, where I feel like I can jump around the scale. 1, 3, 4, 6, 5, 7, 1, 6, 4, 3, 7, 1, 6, 1. And eventually even the notes outside of the key, sharp 4, like The Simpsons, right? Really dissonant, or the flat 3, the minor. 3, 2, 1, right? Or the minor 7th, a whole step under 1. Can go to 6, flat 6. Now we're like in James Bond land, right? So you see how this stuff has like such a vibe and such an interesting sound if you really lean into that. Like, what does this feel like? 6, 7, 1. This goes back to curiosity, of course. Get curious. Can I sing a whole scale? Can I jump around a little bit? Do I really know it? Because that perceptual knowing of your body being able to really easily jump between different notes in the scale is a mental thing. It's also a physical thing if you get your voice involved, and you're tying all that together with like playing it on the instrument. So you're trying to have this like vertical alignment of all this stuff. And if it's there, the memorization part's the least important, right? Maybe it's our way in, where we're like, okay, now I know how to play a scale. Now I can hear it, right? Now I can hear the scale. Now I can practice it in another way. You can use ear training apps. There's lots of ways to do this too. Every song you'll key into, like, oh yeah, that's my old friends, the major scale. You'll just recognize them. There is music, of course, that bucks this and is in kind of really chromatic places or minor places or whatever. But the major scale is still, of course, so important. I figured that one out a long time ago. That goes back to curiosity. I was like, what is that? It sounds pentatonic. Learn it so deeply that it becomes subconscious, and then that's what will really be strong and you can pull from. And you'll just know the major scale sound. You'll be able to integrate it with your instrument, as we'll talk about in a sec. Use your voice, and also hear it in songs and recognize it. Or when you perform music, if you know your music well enough, you can start to key into some of this stuff as a listener. What are the notes that I'm playing? What is it in the scale? Can I hum along with the part? Can I hum along with my instrument easily? Or in other words, are those notches in my brain deep enough of the major scale? Number 4, instrument input. You need to learn these things on your instrument at some point, or an instrument. It really helps embody this thing. You can also sing it, of course. That's one way of doing that. If you play guitar or piano, learn one scale. Try to really get it down at a technical level, of course. Well, like maybe one octave of a scale or something, if you're new to scales. And again, no one cares if we can play this scale, but it can be a tool here. But if I can play this scale, I can also get better at ear training, getting more fluent in a technical way where I can solo with the G scale, or I could play a melody or whatever. Once this is acquired and I've gone through and thought 3rd fret, open, 2nd, 3rd, all the kind of literal information, once I've digested that and my body's digested it, where I can feel like this and I can play it, right? Just very easy. And of course, this is a work in progress for me, but it needs to be in your fingers, right? And then you can start to use that as a way to study the sound of scales, to really get into this at a perceptual, curious level. Putting on a drone is a really good thing to mess with. So put on a G drone. I've got a piano here. I'll just play a G like this. Playing over it. Singing, R6. Right? Really getting curious. How fluent can I be on my instrument as well? Can I just practice like playing in a key? Like that's a really cool thing to do, right? Melodically, practice singing in a key. Just practice really getting those major scale notes to flow out of your instrument and also kind of your heart. That's the goal. It's going to start to feel like that, where if you especially use the kind of random thing to like play some random notes, really test yourself, you start to have a deep acquisition here, which will allow you to kind of level up, because it'll be so subconscious, so automatic. Number 5, tagging. So I've already been doing this here, but tagging is just the concept of telling your brain a piece of information while you experience a sound, right? In this case, we're going to be tagging notes or chords. So this is why I say to practice saying the number while you strum a chord of a progression. You have to obviously know what that number is, but if you can practice going like 1, 4, 5, 6, right? And just trying to hear these things using your voice is a really good way to do this. Even if you say 1, 4, 5, if you refuse to sing, that's cool. 1, 4, 5, 4, 6, 4, 6, 1, whatever. That's going to help your brain understand this and your subconscious understand the sounds we're actually talking about. And that same context in another key is going to sound the same relatively. So like, let's say I'm talking about Jingle Bells. So da 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 4, 1, 5, right? And another key, here's a key of C. 4, 1, 5, right? It just tells that same story. Is those chords are going to hit you the same. And sometimes when I'm thinking about a song, I haven't played it in a while, or maybe it's a song I've never played, but I've heard. What will happen is my ear will kind of tell my fingers what to do, and it kind of bypasses my brain. I'll be like, I'm not sure what the next part is, but my fingers actually go to the right chords. It's kind of like that perceptual thing. That's what we're trying to get online, and that will really serve you as a musician because you're not thinking, you're not like lost in thought. You can tag chords and also melody notes, so you can accompany learning a scale on the guitar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 by tagging the numbers, or if you want to use solfege or whatever. Not everyone does this, of course, and this is kind of progressive practice. And of course, it should be, right? Practice is all about getting better. You don't necessarily have to say the number for every note, but I do think it's a good idea. And even humming along would be very helpful for you understanding these sounds and getting a connection between your voice and the instrument. And this really leads, if you play lead guitar, to your instrument feeling like your voice, which is so good, right? Because it means like you're just talking. You're not like trying to show off, or like you're just conveying information in good faith. And it feels super authentic. It feels like you. It doesn't feel like, what lick should I play next? It's like you just play. That's a tangent, but getting back to this, MP, mental practice. So this goes along with tagging, but the more you do this stuff and the more input you get and the more context you give yourself and the more you sing and really feel what I'm talking about, you will be able to do this away from the guitar, which I'm a huge advocate for. If you can get into like a mental practice, reviewing stuff away from the guitar, singing, humming, imagining yourself playing a C chord or a C scale or a G scale, to think about some of that stuff, just to kind of go over your practicing in your head, that can really be a good way to digest these things. And you can also practice ear training, audiation, hearing stuff in your head, and also singing, just humming to yourself while you're on a walk or whatever. I do this a lot. I practice improvisation. That's really beneficial because I don't get enough time to practice on my instruments. I'm just way too busy. So I can utilize some of my time away from the instrument, which is most of the time. Listening to a podcast about music, practicing, listening to music is, I think, a form of practice, a form of input, especially when you're hip to numbers and context. Everything you hear is some kind of development. But mental practice is a free thing we can do, and many people don't do it, I know. I've often asked students to do this while in a lesson, and I have them imagine playing a certain thing, like a scale or a chord, and just putting themselves there mentally, trying to hear what they're doing. And I think they find it really beneficial, but I don't think anyone hardly does it because we're just very literal often. Once you're aware of how mentally clear you need to be, it will really help you be ready for the physical part. Because when you have a guitar in your hand, then you can actually work on playing stuff and not having to review everything. You're trying to do kind of like 10 levels of multitasking when we just save it all just for our instrument, whatever that is, right? So if you play drums or sing or play guitar or bass, there's ways you can kind of utilize your voice and your imagination and your just ability to focus on something, to pay attention to something in your head. You can kind of digest some of these things, maximizing your progress on your instrument because you're able to separate things out and work on them one at a time. Number 6, hear harmony bass first. Harmony, of course, is just chords. And when you're trying to get better at ear training with chords, really tune your ear to the bass. This is kind of the under foundational part of the music. And many people kind of tune it out. They don't even think about it that much. Because they're listening to the melody and that's cool, or the lyrics or whatever, or the vibe. But our ability to kind of pick out the bass and to be able to hum it, that's going to really help you hear chord progressions. I was working with a band yesterday, and this song, upon re-examination, one of the other teachers was like, I think the bass is different here on this part than we have it on the chart. Sure enough, it was. I'd never really listened to the song, but the bass is different in the first part, and it really changes the feeling. There's very subtle emotional stuff it can do. Let's say I've got 2 notes not changing. I'll do it on piano. And listen to how much the bass can do. You can play a whole chord progression. You can play weird notes. Right? Isn't that cool? It has a lot of power. It's essentially the label of everything above it. If you have a deep enough relationship with it, then you can use the scale and hum along to find the bass. You might hear 6, like this, 6, and let's say we go down to this. If I can hear 6, 5, 4, then we can use that bass motion in the scale to connect those chords, especially when we're coming up blank on what's that chord? What's the second chord? Right? That's the goal here, is to use the scale, something else that we can do separate ear training on and separate development on, that eventually will get in our muscle memory, in our voice, and in our mind, and we can connect it. Let's say I go like this. So at 1, or let's say I'm in minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, right? 4, 5. It can be hard, right? When the guitar's voicings change, we can't get distracted by that. So that's why the major scale practice is important. That's why curiosity is important. That's why using your voice is important. You leverage all these things to kind of really digest a sound and recognize it, right? And have a few tools when one doesn't work out. Number 7, motivation. I wanted to bring us back to first principles and to leave you something to kind of ruminate on that I think about a lot and that helps me out, is just the mystery of music in general and our innate love for it. I think when people come to me for lessons or ask for music advice, or they say they play guitar or whatever, they want a freedom with music to be able to really speak it fluently, to be able to feel it, to express themselves through it. And that's what I'm trying to give here on this channel. And I think any good teacher is trying to give you, any good musician, right? Even when you see an electric musician perform live, you're encouraged by their self-expression. That can be so inspiring, right, for our own journey. We need to remember and find that joy on a day-to-day basis. BTI down there means become the instrument. I wanted to mention that. That's the name of Kenny Werner's second book, that we are, our bodies and our minds and everything here is part of the instrument that plays music. It will physically help you. It'll help your flow, how smoothly you can play to optimize those things. I think it really just describes the music making process well. The more we see ourselves as separate from the music or having to think about everything, it gets harder and harder. But the more we can get into a flow state with music to be able to know something deep enough to practice it at these levels and to be able to speak it fluently with other musicians. I've jammed with musicians, we didn't know the same languages, and I've played with them, and it's a beautiful gift. It's a beautiful gift to just listen to music. It's enough for me. Even if I couldn't play it, I would love just to listen forever. But to be able to play it as well, and to play a song that moves you, to play a song that moves someone else, to play your favorite song, whatever it is, to play brand new music, to improvise. There are so many ways to have a good time musically, and of course we need to be motivated by that as well, just the innate joy. And to find that on a day-to-day basis, just to find it with something. It doesn't have to be music, right? It's just kind of finding the joy of being human and learning and using something to learn, to better ourselves in these ways. I think these tools will be helpful for you. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. I'll be back with more exact points on some of these, like the major scale, ear training. We'll talk about more on the feeling the individual scale degrees. I think they all have personalities to them, and they're old friends to me, and they could become old friends to you as well. They're very social. Also, curiosity, I think that's ultra important here, and that's the general kind of spirit of all this. I will be back next week with another video. Until then, have a good one, and let me know if there's any other tips or tricks you use to practice this, and if any of these have particularly worked well for you. Thanks.